What was once considered a closed case, a tragic car accident that shocked fans and dominated headlines for a brief moment, has suddenly transformed into something far more complicated and unsettling. The fatal crash involving King Harris had been presented as a straightforward, devastating event, a high-speed collision, a loss of control, and a life tragically cut short. For months, the public accepted this narrative without much question, offering condolences, sharing tributes, and quietly moving on. Yet now, new footage has emerged, footage that was never meant to see the light of day, and it threatens to upend everything people believed about that night. This isn't a matter of minor corrections or overlooked details. The newly surfaced clips show crucial seconds that were previously omitted from official accounts. They reveal moments leading up to the crash, subtle shifts in movement, and potentially significant elements that were never disclosed. Sources familiar with the footage claim that what it captures could reshape timelines, challenge previously accepted explanations, and even reassign blame. Those who have viewed it insist that something doesn't add up, not just tragic or confusing, but suspicious. And as snippets began leaking across social media, the question dominating public conversation has become unavoidable. Was this truly an accident, or is there a larger story being deliberately obscured? Before this footage appeared, the narrative was simple. Authorities described the incident as a severe collision caused by speed and loss of control. No foul play was suggested. The story, though tragic, was contained, and the public largely accepted the official reports. Social media flooded with messages of heartbreak, fans expressed disbelief, and public figures reminded audiences of life's fragile unpredictability. At first glance, it seemed like an accident the world could mourn and then slowly forget. But beneath the surface, inconsistencies were quietly accumulating. Some reported times differed slightly from one account to another. Witness statements were scarce and vague, even in a semi-populated area where crashes rarely go undocumented. And perhaps most curious of all, no visual evidence was ever released. In an era dominated by cameras, from traffic surveillance to private security feeds, this absence seemed odd. While most people didn't question it at the time, a few observers quietly wondered why no footage existed. Why were there no clips or stills to corroborate official reports? Those questions didn't vanish. They lingered in the background, faint but persistent, waiting for an opportunity to resurface. That opportunity arrived when the new footage emerged. According to multiple online sources, the video had existed all along, captured by a nearby camera that had never been publicly acknowledged. Its sudden appearance changed everything instantly. Unlike previously released accounts, this footage didn't merely replay the crash. It provided a perspective of the moments leading up to it. As viewers examined the frames, subtle details surfaced that challenged the original narrative. At first, the clip seems ordinary, a car moving down the road with no immediate sign of danger. But then, almost imperceptibly, the vehicle's motion shifts. It isn't dramatic, not enough to indicate reckless driving, yet it is noticeable upon closer inspection. And then, the crash occurs. What makes this sequence unsettling is its discrepancy with prior reports. There is no clear evidence of swerving, speed miscalculations, or aggressive maneuvers. Instead, there's a subtle, almost unnatural motion immediately before the collision, raising questions about what truly caused the crash. Fans analyzing the footage began to notice a secondary object at the edge of the frame, something barely discernible, but enough to spark speculation. Some claim it could be another vehicle. Others argue it might be a shadow or visual distortion. Yet the very possibility of an additional presence complicates the previously accepted explanation, suggesting that the official narrative may have been incomplete. The situation intensified when a second, longer clip surfaced, showing the immediate aftermath of the crash. Observers noticed faint movement in the distance, brief, almost imperceptible, but enough to suggest that someone or something may have left the scene. The implications were immediate. Why was this never reported? Why did authorities' statements omit such a potentially significant detail? Questions mounted as clips began disappearing. Accounts that posted the footage were removed, links ceased to function, and videos were quietly taken down. The removals only heightened suspicion. In public perception, nothing fuels doubt more than active erasure. Amid the chaos, a cryptic online comment advised viewers to look beyond the obvious, prompting deeper analysis of reflections, shadows, and peripheral details. One eagle-eyed observer claimed to see another set of headlights in a reflection, positioned in a way that didn't align with official descriptions. Soon after, a purported document surfaced, containing the phrase, "secondary presence not confirmed at time of initial assessment." Whether authentic or not, it added weight to the theory that there could have been another entity present unseen during the crash. Perhaps the most chilling discovery was a subtle timestamp glitch in the video. For a fraction of a second, the footage skips, a brief, almost imperceptible gap. While it might seem inconsequential, it immediately became the focus of intense speculation. In investigations of this nature, even a single second can alter the entire understanding of an event. 1 second could reveal a new action, a new object, or a previously invisible participant. The missing moment fueled theories that the footage circulating online may not be complete, and that the version publicized could have been edited intentionally or accidentally, leaving crucial information out of view. The public's reaction has been instantaneous and intense. Social media is flooded with breakdowns of the footage, frame-by-frame analyses, and side-by-side comparisons of official reports with the newly revealed clips. Every subtle detail, shadows, reflections, movements, and discrepancies has become a point of debate. Theories range from mechanical failure and unreported obstacles to deliberate tampering and cover-up. As more people discuss and dissect the evidence, speculation gains momentum, feeding itself and expanding far beyond initial social media circles. In this context, what was once a single tragic accident has become a complex puzzle, a story with multiple layers that demand scrutiny. It highlights not only the fragility of accepted narratives, but also the challenges of trust and transparency in the modern age. Each revelation raises more questions than answers. Who had access to the hidden footage? Why was it withheld for so long? What else might be missing? And how much of the narrative we were presented with can be relied upon? The resurfacing of the footage underscores a critical point. Perception, timing, and access shape public understanding in ways that often go unnoticed until new evidence emerges. What people initially accepted as truth, the simplicity of a tragic crash, has now been replaced with ambiguity, tension, and suspicion. Every frame, every second, and every subtle cue in the video has become a source of debate, highlighting how even a few missing moments can drastically alter how an event is perceived. The story of King Harris's crash is no longer just a tale of tragedy. It has become a live investigation unfolding in real time. Each new clip, each leak, and each removal adds layers of complexity. And as the public continues to analyze, question, and theorize, one fact becomes increasingly clear. The narrative we thought we knew was incomplete, and the full truth may be far more complicated and possibly far darker than anyone ever imagined. The internet has never been so divided over a single story. On one side, there are those who argue that the footage of King Harris's fatal car crash is being overanalyzed, that shadows, reflections, and minor video imperfections are being mistaken for something far more significant than they really are. On the other side, a growing number of people are convinced that crucial details are being deliberately withheld. As clips continue to vanish from social media and questions remain unanswered, the focus has shifted from what is visible to what might be missing. The central question is no longer simply what caused the crash. It has become, what hasn't been shown? Was there another vehicle involved? Was the footage edited or tampered with? What happened in that missing second? Until those questions are resolved, the story remains unresolved, leaving the public to speculate endlessly. And with every new leak or disappearance of footage, the narrative evolves, forcing audiences to reconsider everything they thought they knew about the night King Harris lost his life. As the footage circulated, viewers began replaying it obsessively, slowing it down, zooming in, examining each frame with painstaking detail. What initially seemed like a straightforward accident was now generating questions that multiplied with every pass. Subtle inconsistencies that went unnoticed before suddenly took on significance, prompting even casual observers to reconsider what they had accepted as truth. The real question became increasingly clear. What exactly does this footage reveal that is shaking public trust and challenging the official account? The moment the first clip leaked, everything changed. At first glance, the footage seemed innocuous, grainy, distant, and slightly angled, clearly recorded by a security camera from afar. It wasn't flashy or cinematic, and it certainly didn't seem like something capable of shaking the internet. Yet once it began circulating through private messages and small online groups, it quickly exploded across social media, creating a shockwave that reverberated far beyond its initial audience. Early viewers weren't even certain the clip was connected to the crash. Then someone slowed it down, zoomed in, and matched the location to known landmarks. In that instant, the truth became undeniable. This wasn't just a random video, it was the crash itself, and it contradicted the narrative most people had accepted. The opening seconds appear calm, almost deceptively so. A car moves steadily down the road. Nothing seems out of place, no erratic movement, no indication of danger. The scene feels almost serene, too serene for the tragic outcome that follows. And then, imperceptibly at first, the vehicle, later confirmed to be King Harris's, shifts. It isn't a dramatic swerve or a clear loss of control, merely a subtle, almost unnatural movement. Those watching closely could sense the change immediately, recognizing it as the moment when everything begins to diverge from the official story. According to reports released after the crash, speed and loss of control were the primary causes. Yet in this footage, there's no overt evidence of reckless driving. No aggressive acceleration, no weaving through lanes, no visible mistakes. Just that sudden, enigmatic movement followed almost immediately by impact. The camera frame shakes, the collision produces a faint, muffled sound, and then the clip ends abruptly. For most viewers, the real shock wasn't the crash itself, it was what happened right before it. Almost immediately, analysts and enthusiasts began dissecting the footage frame by frame, searching for overlooked elements. That's when a detail first surfaced. At the far edge of the frame, nearly imperceptible unless one looked carefully, something appeared. Its nature was unclear, hidden in the background, but it was undeniably there. Some interpreted it as another vehicle. Others insisted it was a shadow, a trick of the light, or a distortion caused by the camera lens. Yet as the footage was slowed further, observers noted that this presence didn't appear random. Its movement seemed deliberate, intentional even, and that single observation reframed the entire incident. If another vehicle was involved, even indirectly, the narrative of an isolated accident no longer held. It suggested interaction, a previously unacknowledged factor, and forced a reconsideration of the official story. The reactions were immediate and intense. Social media exploded with debates, speculation, and outrage. People questioned why such a detail had never been mentioned. Had investigators overlooked it, or was it deliberately omitted? Theories spread, ranging from a minor oversight to a deliberate cover-up. The conversation escalated further when users began comparing the clip with the initial reports, noticing subtle discrepancies. The angle of impact didn't fully match the descriptions. The timing of the crash was slightly off. The sequence of events diverged in ways that were subtle but undeniable when scrutinized closely. On their own, these inconsistencies might have been dismissed. Together, they planted seeds of doubt that quickly multiplied. Then a second version of the footage appeared. Longer, slightly clearer, and more disturbing, this clip revealed not only the moments leading up to the crash but also what happened immediately afterward. For the first time, viewers saw movement in the distance, faint, rapid, and easily missed at casual speed. But once noticed, it was impossible to ignore. Something or someone appeared to be leaving the scene. The subtlety of the movement only added to its ominousness. This wasn't random pedestrian activity. It was deliberate and purposeful, suggesting that someone or something had been present that authorities never acknowledged. New questions emerged almost instantly. Why had no one mentioned this? Why had the footage remained hidden for so long? Why did certain details seem carefully omitted from initial reports? Speculation ran rampant. Some theorized that authorities or other insiders had access to this footage long before it leaked publicly. Others suggested that the official narrative had been constructed to simplify the story, intentionally leaving out details that might complicate public perception. None of these claims were verified, but in an environment already fueled by doubt, even unconfirmed theories spread quickly. As the second clip gained traction, a new phenomenon emerged: disappearance. Accounts posting the videos were suddenly deleted, videos began vanishing, links went dead, and with each removal, suspicion intensified. The public's focus shifted from what was on screen to what was being hidden. People began asking the obvious question: if this footage is innocuous, why remove it? What is being protected or concealed? Each vanished post, each deleted account, each broken link deepened the sense that the narrative had been controlled and curated to hide something significant. Amid this chaos, a single cryptic comment appeared on a forum: "You're all looking at the wrong part of the video." It came from an account with no followers, no history, and no verified identity. Yet those 5 words sent viewers in a new direction. Suddenly, analysis wasn't just about the obvious elements: the car, the crash, the apparent anomaly at the edge of the frame. People began scrutinizing reflections, shadows, and the background environment in painstaking detail. Every frame became a potential hiding place for information, every shadow a possible clue, and every reflection a potential witness to unseen events. From that point on, the story became less about the crash itself and more about what the footage might be concealing. Speculation morphed into obsession. Online communities, message boards, and social media threads exploded with users attempting to reconstruct the events, hypothesize about missing details, and uncover any hidden truths buried in seconds of grainy video. The incident stopped being casual entertainment or a trending news story. It had become a full-scale investigation conducted by the internet itself. Eventually, someone claimed they had discovered a detail that changed everything. A user who had been posting meticulous breakdowns from the first clip uploaded a zoomed-in version, drawing attention not to the car or crash but to the background. Within a reflection, subtle, nearly invisible without careful scrutiny, another set of headlights appeared. The presence was fleeting, almost ghostly, but undeniably their once enhanced. If confirmed, it suggested that another vehicle had been present at the scene, possibly contributing to the collision, or at the very least, witnessing it. This revelation intensified speculation to unprecedented levels. If a second vehicle had been present, questions about responsibility, timing, and concealment exploded. Who was in that vehicle? Did they have any role in the crash? Why had no one mentioned this presence in official reports? Each new piece of potential evidence became a puzzle piece in a narrative that was rapidly outgrowing the original tragedy. Meanwhile, the missing seconds in the footage became the focal point of debate. Analysts noticed subtle glitches in the timestamp, brief skips that could have erased critical moments. That single missing second, literally a fraction of a moment, transformed the story. 1 second could conceal a key action, a shift in trajectory, or the presence of another party. The notion that footage might have been edited, or that crucial details had been intentionally omitted, shifted public perception from curiosity to suspicion, and suspicion to outrage. By the time the clips had circulated widely, the narrative had evolved far beyond a simple accident. The story had become an active, participatory investigation, with viewers piecing together evidence in real time. Every replay generated new theories. Every pause revealed potential anomalies. Shadows, reflections, and background movements were dissected with forensic precision. Social media threads were filled with side-by-side comparisons, detailed frame analyses, and endless debate about what was genuine, what was manipulated, and what remained unseen. In this environment, the narrative surrounding King Harris's crash had transformed entirely. What had once been accepted as a simple, tragic accident became a layered, complex mystery filled with unknowns. The public was no longer just observing, they were participating, investigating, and theorizing. And as the second clip disappeared, accounts vanished and links were removed, the sense of a concealed truth only grew. This story illustrates the modern dynamics of information, perception, and speculation. A single clip, when circulated online, can shift public understanding. The absence of footage, the subtle alterations in perspective, and the gaps in reporting can generate doubt, curiosity, and obsession. And as the internet collectively dissects evidence, the narrative becomes fluid, evolving in real time, often faster than any official investigation can respond. King Harris's fatal crash is no longer merely an accident. It is a puzzle, a mystery, and a story of perception versus reality. Every frame, every reflection, and every vanished clip raises new questions, forcing observers to consider what might be hidden just out of sight. Until the full footage surfaces, or until authorities provide clarification, the story remains unresolved, a narrative suspended between tragedy, suspicion, and the growing power of public analysis. Not in front of the vehicle, not behind it, off to the side. That was the critical observation that reignited the online debate around King Harris's fatal crash. The reflection, subtle, almost imperceptible, didn't align with anything described in official reports. It was positioned in a way that suggested the presence of another vehicle at the scene, a factor no one had acknowledged before. That single detail caused a renewed explosion of speculation. If the reflection was real, if there truly had been another car in that position, the official explanation of the crash no longer held. It wasn't merely a matter of speed or loss of control anymore. It implied a more complex sequence of events, something involving multiple elements that had been ignored or omitted entirely. As this theory began gaining traction, another twist emerged, this time from a source that appeared more official. A blurry, cropped image of what looked like an internal document circulated online. Its authenticity was unverified and the source was unclear, yet its formatting made it appear legitimate enough to draw attention. Within the document, one line stood out: secondary presence not confirmed at time of initial assessment. That single phrase shifted the conversation entirely. It didn't claim there was nothing there. Instead, it suggested that something might have been present but wasn't verified at the time. Suddenly, what people were seeing in the leaked footage no longer seemed like speculation or illusion. It hinted at something that may have been overlooked, or more disturbingly, deliberately withheld. Of course, there was no official confirmation that the document was real. It could have been fabricated, edited, or entirely unrelated. But its timing was uncanny. It surfaced precisely when discussions around the reflection theory were peaking, fueling debates and intensifying the sense of urgency online. The narrative was fracturing. One group saw this as evidence of a second vehicle. Another dismissed it as overanalysis or coincidence, while a growing third faction became convinced that key details were being withheld. Pressure began to build rapidly. Media outlets started paying attention. At first, coverage was cautious and neutral, phrased in careful language that avoided speculation. But gradually, the tone shifted. Headlines moved away from calling it a simple accident and instead began referencing inconsistencies, emerging theories, and lingering questions. Articles ran with titles like, "Questions arise after new footage surfaces." Online users highlight discrepancies in crash video. Speculation grows over possible second vehicle. Nothing was officially confirmed, yet the narrative had begun to tilt. Once public perception begins to shift, reversing it is nearly impossible. Then another twist arrived. A user claimed they had downloaded the original footage before it disappeared from online platforms. But instead of sharing the video, they posted a single message. "There's a part missing from every version you've seen." That one line sent shockwaves through the community. Missing. What could that mean? According to the post, every version of the footage currently circulating had been edited, trimmed, or altered. The original footage, before being reposted or removed, allegedly contained extra seconds that revealed something no one was discussing. What made this more unsettling was that the user didn't upload the missing portion. They didn't describe what those seconds contained. They offered no proof. Instead, they left a cryptic message. "If you saw that part, you'd understand why it's gone." And then silence. No follow-up, no explanation, no context. But that silence spoke louder than any statement ever could. It shifted the focus from what viewers could see to what they weren't being allowed to see. The idea of a deliberately withheld moment sparked obsession, turning casual interest into full-scale investigation. The situation rapidly escalated into something much bigger than an internet trend. People weren't just watching, they were invested, mentally and emotionally absorbed in piecing together a narrative that no longer felt complete. Every clip, every reflection, and every frame became a potential clue. One question dominated the conversation. What is in that missing part of the footage that could be so significant it had to be removed? Because if something crucial had been edited out, everything witnessed so far might only represent a fraction of the story. The online response grew more polarized with each passing hour. One faction argued the footage was being overanalyzed. Low-quality security video often creates illusions. Shadows, lighting inconsistencies, and reflections can trick even trained eyes. "You're seeing what you want to see," some said. "This happens every time people turn tragedy into conspiracy." "There's no real proof of another vehicle," others insisted. To them, the narrative was simple: a tragic accident, now blown out of proportion by speculation. But the other side was equally vocal. This group wasn't just suspicious, they were convinced. They pointed to the reflection, the inconsistencies between footage and official reports, and the strange timing of disappear. In videos, they questioned why every clip was being deleted if there was nothing to hide. For them, removal didn't alleviate suspicion, it confirmed it. The missing footage wasn't just an absence, it was proof of potential concealment. Hashtags began appearing, small at first but quickly gaining traction. "Release the full footage." "What are they hiding?" "King Harris Truth." With these tags, the pressure intensified. The story was no longer about a single clip. It had become about transparency, accountability, and whether the public had been shown the full picture. Every new post, comment, or theory fueled the growing sense of urgency. Even industry insiders began to react, though subtly. Cryptic social media messages appeared, hinting at caution and secrecy. The truth isn't always what's shown, it's what's withheld. Others warned, don't take everything at face value. No names were mentioned, no connections confirmed, yet the timing suggested insider awareness. Suddenly, the online obsession wasn't limited to fans. It extended to those potentially closer to the actual events, hinting that something was being left intentionally opaque. At this stage, the story had transformed completely. It was no longer about a crash. It had become a struggle over conflicting versions of reality. The debate was no longer about what happened, but about whether the public had been given a controlled narrative instead of the full truth. And despite all the analysis, speculation, and leaked documents, there was still no concrete answer. No official acknowledgement of another vehicle. No confirmation of missing footage. No explanation for the discrepancies that viewers had painstakingly documented. Only noise, loud, emotional, unrelenting noise. Amid the chaos, the sense grew that something fundamental was being withheld. People weren't just discussing details. They were trying to reconstruct an entire incident from fragments, reflections, and speculation. Every removed clip and deleted post added weight to the perception that the narrative had been curated, intentionally or otherwise. Every unanswered question deepened suspicion. And yet, despite the uncertainty, the public fascination only intensified. Online communities dedicated themselves to examining every possible detail, adjusting brightness, slowing footage, enhancing shadows, and analyzing reflections. The missing seconds became the focal point of obsession. Everyone wanted to know what had been removed, what might have been hidden, and why. The missing content was no longer a detail. It had become the central mystery, the linchpin of the entire discussion. This obsession reached a point where the story transcended a single viral post. It became a cultural moment, a collective investigation driven by the power of social media. Comment sections evolved into full-scale analysis boards. Community threads examined every second of the footage as if their conclusions could determine the truth itself. The question at the heart of the obsession remained simple but terrifying. What are we not being shown? And in the middle of this swirling chaos, the narrative had evolved beyond speculation into something resembling fear, paranoia, and deep suspicion. Every reflection, every shadow, every subtle movement in the footage became significant. The line between accidental visual distortion and deliberate omission blurred. People weren't just seeking answers. They were seeking the truth behind a story that had been carefully controlled and curated. Ultimately, what started as a tragic car accident became a mystery that challenged perception itself. The official narrative, speed, loss of control, a simple accident, was no longer sufficient. Every frame, every edited clip, and every removed post raised questions that had no immediate answers. And in the absence of clarity, people became obsessed with constructing their own version of reality. The story had evolved into a battle over information, interpretation, and control. At its core, this wasn't just about what viewers could see. It was about what they believed had been hidden. And once that belief takes hold, it changes everything. The missing footage, the mysterious reflection, the alleged internal document, the disappearing videos, they all combined to create a story that felt alive, dynamic, and unresolved. And until the full truth emerges, the debate will continue, fueled by speculation, obsession, and the human need to fill in the blanks. Because at this point, one question dominates every conversation. What is in that missing footage that could be so significant it had to be removed? And until that answer is revealed, every frame, every reflection, and every edited clip will be scrutinized, questioned, and debated. The story of King Harris's crash is no longer just an accident. It is a mystery, a cultural phenomenon, and a lesson in how perception, absence, and control can shape the narrative more powerfully than any single fact ever could. Beck. Pause when a story refuses to settle. When questions keep multiplying instead of being answered, it usually means one thing. It isn't over. Not even close. And if the full footage ever surfaces, if those missing seconds are finally revealed, it could change everything all over again. As more clips continued to disappear and conversations intensified, one question kept echoing louder than the rest. Why is footage being deleted if there's nothing to hide? That single thought pushed the entire situation into a new phase, because the more content vanished, the stronger the suspicion became. People began to notice a pattern, and whether real or coincidental, it didn't sit right. Because the truth is, nothing fuels doubt faster than something disappearing in real time. And then came the hashtags. At first, they were small, scattered across different posts, but they quickly began to gain traction. Hash released the full footage, what are they hiding, King Harris truth. Once those phrases started circulating, even in smaller online spaces, the pressure became impossible to ignore. This was no longer just about one clip or one theory. It became about transparency, about whether the full truth had actually been shown, or if people were only seeing a controlled version of events. As the online conversation grew louder, something else began to happen. The industry started reacting, but not in a direct or obvious way. Instead, it was subtle, cryptic. Public figures who normally stayed out of situations like this began posting vague messages that felt too perfectly timed to be random. One message read, "Sometimes the truth is what's released, it's what's withheld." Another warned, "Be careful what you accept as the full story." There were no names mentioned, no clear references, but the meaning felt obvious to those already following the situation. And that's when things became even more uncomfortable, because now it wasn't just fans asking questions. It felt like people closer to the environment were hinting that there might be more going on beneath the surface. At the same time, the media began to shift its tone. Initially cautious, outlets had reported the situation as a tragic accident with little room for speculation. But now, without making direct claims, their language started to change. Segments began referencing unverified footage. Articles mentioned online theories about inconsistencies and missing moments. Even interviews, brief and carefully worded, started including questions about whether all available information had truly been released. Still, there were no confirmations, no official statements addressing the footage directly, but that silence itself began to feel loud, because at a certain point, not responding becomes its own kind of response. Then, just when it seemed like things couldn't get more intense, another moment pushed everything further. A short clip surfaced, not of the crash itself, but of the aftermath. It was brief, only a few seconds long, and at first it didn't seem significant, but within that clip, barely audible, was a voice. Faint, distorted, easy to miss unless you were listening closely. And what that voice said sent a chill through everyone paying attention. "That's not how it happened." That was it. No explanation. No context, just that single line. But it was enough to shift the conversation once again. Because now people weren't just questioning what they were seeing, they were questioning the entire narrative. Who said that? What did they mean? Were they referring to something the public didn't know? Was there another version of events that hadn't been revealed? And just like that, the story evolved again. It wasn't just about a crash anymore. It became about conflicting realities, about the possibility that what people were seeing might only be one piece of a much larger puzzle. The idea that the public might have been given a simplified or controlled version of the story began to take hold, and that idea alone was enough to keep the conversation alive. Because despite everything, the footage, the analysis, the theories, there was still no clear answer. No confirmation of a second vehicle, no acknowledgement of missing footage, no explanation for the inconsistencies that people believed they were seeing, just noise. Constant, emotional, relentless noise. And within that noise, a growing feeling that something bigger was being avoided.